All right. So, welcome back. Today we are we're chasing another rabbit. We're in another rabbit hole. And we're starting today with the C major chord. And this is a challenging one. It can be a challenging one. It doesn't have to be a challenging one, but it can be a challenging one. Now, all of the notes in the open position for C major chord are C, E, G, C, and E. And since we have an E here, we can also use a low E. But that's not the root note of the chord, so typically we'll use the root note as the bass note. And this is a typical strum pattern in 4/4 in common time at 60 beats per minute. 60 beats per minute is very similar to walking down the street in a leisurely way. And so we're strumming the bass note first and then dropping through the rest of the string set. And I'm not rushing the pick. I'm not pushing hard. I'm just letting the pressure, if I had no pressure or no tension in my right forearm, from my pick all the way up to my elbow, my pick hand would fall, but I have to arrest the fall. So I'm going to fall and then arrest just as soon as I feel the pick going through the remainder of the string set. So I would fall, otherwise this happens when we self-arrest, right? So there's this down, down. You could just strum the whole chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, T, 4. And we can experiment with changed bass notes like we talked about. We had that low E note in the bass. And now we'll try the C chord with a G in the bass. You kind of fatten things up a little bit. Kind of like reminiscent of that Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here sound, you know. But I think if you wanted that sound, I think we'd have to institute use of the 3rd fret on the A string with the 4th finger. So we have 3, 3, 2, 0, 1, 0. So that's a C chord with an E, F sharp, G in the bass, or E, F, because we're in the key of C, G in the bass. If we played C with E in the bass, here's what that sounds like. So that's pretty cool. We have C major chord, which is the typical C major. We have a lot to talk about. There's a special guest here. A special guest is in a special chord, sort of like Bard from Nashville. So the C chord can be a little challenging to play. You know how we add that 4th finger on the high E string, and then now we're using all 4 fingers. We still have open string G here, which is really cool to have in an open position chord. But that G note up here is the same thing that we did with adding the G note low on the low E string, but it's 2 octaves higher. And you can also just be aware of where we're strumming the guitar, because the closer to the bridge we are, the brighter the sound is. And we may want to highlight their top 3 strings while we sort of dampen or darken up the lower 3 strings or the bass strings of the guitar by strumming closer to the sound hole or to the neck. So that's all based on the C chord, right? So we have that C chord, which is traditional, which is typical. So we're just going to continue working through this for now before we advance a little further down the road. So that C chord, if we play that, we can parallel playing any shape on the guitar, including the C chord. So I'm just parallel playing that to the next position up. In other words, each finger is moving up the same exact number of frets on the same string. It's not, no fingers are changing strings. But, some areas, again, sound better than others, So this is a C chord. This is the same C shape on fret number, or position number 2, wherever the first finger is which position we're in. And then, sort of C sharp with a flatted 5 or sharp 11. And then a flatted 3, which is not, you could find a way to use it. We could find ways to use this, but it's not all that pleasant. This one's a little bit more pleasant. So we have that nice D chord with the added 9 on the top. So it's a C shape, but we're using the position 3 with third finger on fret 5, which is basically a D note. Turns this into a D and F sharp, 1 and a root and a 3. So it's a happy chord, but it's got that do, re, mi, fa, and fa, that half step naturally occurring right in the middle of the chord. What a beautiful sound, And then another root note, and then a 9 of the D chord. So that's sort of like a D major triad with an added 9 and added 11. Only the 11's octave reduced down to the G string because we're not pianists, Which is okay, it's cool. Playing accompaniment with a piano player is providing accompaniment and partnering up on accompaniment with a pianist is one of the finest arts I think a guitar player could develop, to be a responsive and competent comper, or one who plays chords to accompany a vocalist or an instrumentalist or whatever alongside a pianist. That's a real gift, This is kind of cool. You'll find sweet spots that, that doesn't really work. But you can parallel playing the C chord up and down the neck. Turns into an F here, that's cool. F sharp's a little more challenging. G is cool. It's got that 6 on the top. What I mean by that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, re. So that's a G chord with a 6 in it. So it's kind of cool. It comes from that same C chord that we just learned. Fingers 3, 2, open, and 1. That's kind of cool. The A sound with the open G there. And then the high E. And then back to the place from whence we came, which is C, an octave higher than this C. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just be sure that we've got each finger rolled up off of the next lighter string, because if I leave my third finger rolling, laying over or lazy at all, that's just going to totally choke out that D string, So I have to be really careful about that with each finger on the left hand, the fretting hand. So one great way to figure out whether we're playing the chord successfully or not is to arpeggiate it. And this is another method of my love. It's another great method of accompaniment, patterning, right? Instead of strumming, you know, we've got this nice down, forward roll, and into a reverse roll. And we're really shooting for, you know, we could be sloppy and pretend to get it, you know, quote unquote, get it quickly, but that just never works. And when I feel rushed, I like to rely on my metronome at 60 beats per minute to remind me that, you know, it's better to take the time and smell the roses. So I'm using the right hand, as you can see, is a down, up, down, up, down, up alternate picking pattern. 3 and 4 and it just happens to work great for common time. 1 and 2 and T and 4 and 1 and 2 and T and 4 and 1. Cool. So that's just another beginning, right? We could also just, you know, sort of pick, rake, or sweep. This is probably a good technique to get used to, you know, learn it if you're aspiring to, you know, be a metal guitar player or a shred guitar player. Sweep technique is really important to know. For some reason. Cool. Now we're going to look at the next chord, which is that it's sort of a C5, or we're going to omit because remember we just talked about how the third finger sort of has a, you know, a tendency to, you know, roll over. That fat part of the finger right here just sort of lays down and gets, you know, tired. This is bad technique, but in this case we are going to welcome bad technique because we no longer need to use that second finger. We can keep that second finger on reserve for the guy in the front row. Do you know what I mean? So he might want to, you know, he might wonder where that finger's going next. So we've got the third fret on the A, and then choke the D string out, open G, and then I apologize for that. It's a tasteless joke. I won't do that anymore. But so fret 1 on B string, and then open high E. So we've got this 3, choke that, and then. Because we strum, you don't really hear, we can strum right over that choked out string. We don't really perceive it as a clunky note within the chord. So it's cool to just kind of do that. But what that does is it reduces the C chord to only 2 fingers for us on our fret hand. And that, my friend, is where the rubber meets the road. Because now we've got a double benefit. We've cleaned up the voicing, so we already have an E note and the high end of the chord right here. We don't really need to double the note because it's already represented in the chord. And now what we can do with this we could actually use that second finger once in a while. Or we could add that 4th finger up here to really get rid of that E note altogether. And this is definitely called a C5. It's a really tight Nashville style C chord that records very well and very cleanly and allows the vocalist to do all kinds of magic. So I don't, you know, most of the time I've heard from professional singers who are, you know, much better than I am at singing, but if you were to sing like Do, Re, Mi with a C chord, Do, Re, Mi, Do, Re, Mi, I feel my voice sort of like, because I have 2 E notes in that C chord, my voice is also singing in E, this one, and there's a, you know, so I'm trying to battle, my ears are battling to try to get in tune with that E note that's embedded within the C chord, and then, you know, it's doubled again on the high E string, and so why would I want to, you know, battle with any of that stuff, especially when the third degree of the scale, the Do, Re, Mi, is the one that we use tune that's a really expressive place to be. So we wouldn't necessarily want to, decide as an accompanist, here's this chord's going to be major, and singer, vocalist, thou shalt sing this note and match it perfectly. There are instances where that works really well, and there are instances where it could fail or where it could be improved. In this case, we're going to improve it by getting rid of all of the E notes. And you'll hear, I'm going to sing that same line. Now, I just had the power flicker here, so I had to restart a couple things. But you're going to notice when I don't have those E notes in the chord, when the singer, I'll call myself a singer for the moment, license in there, all kinds of area, all kinds of space between the 3 or the E note or the Mi and the Ra or the Me, the flatted Mi. Do, re, mi. Do, re, mi. So there's, it's a little cleaner. It's a whole different thing, right? So it's a good idea to know how to play that C chord with C5. So now what we should do is just take a look at what we could do if we add add all of the notes in C major in open position. Because this is really where the rubber meets the road. And I'm going to share with you an exercise that I've used with students, my own students, private students, for I hate to say decades, but I've been using this for quite a bit of time. So the first key is to just understand, the first step is to understand the C major scale. So we'll start with C, D, E, F, G, A, open B, and then C. And then we start and stop on the root note. So this is a root note. So we'll stop there and start again. D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. C, B, A, G, F, G, E. Don't forget the low E, F, G, A, B, C. There we go. We'll call that close enough. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start working our way through the scale. We're going to think about staying on C, but we're going to work our way through the scale on mostly the bass strings of the guitar, the low E, A, and D strings. Back up to F and then E minor and then D, back down to G. Walks down to the A via the B note. Walk up to F from D, down to E, moving to D, up to F, back down to D by way of E. This is a really great way to get used to the chords in the C scale. I know this is sort of a little beyond the scope of this particular session, but I think it's a good bonus program to just understand this pattern is, this chord progression is sort of great to learn how to use the C major scale. Not only while we're playing through the bass notes, but we might want to start taking a look at telling the story with some melody. There's a lot happening right here in the open position of C major. So we could also take a look at C. You know, C kind of looks like this. You know, we know, well, we haven't really done the A. If you've done the A chord before, that's great, because now it's basically the A shape, but on fret number 3. And then we can do the sus2 and sus4 shapes that, you know, Eddie Van Halen's sort of famous for. A lot of rock guitar players famous for this stuff. James Taylor. But let's kind of hang out back here in the C area, the C major chord area, in open position. So, what are we talking about now? Where are we going with this? So we've covered the C major chord. We've covered the C. The C sus4 is really good to know. So we're suspending the use of the third with the 4th degree of the scale. Whoa, do, re, mi, fa. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Suspends the use of the 3, and then we resolve back to 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. We have all kinds of room here to play through the scale, and then create chord patterns over the top. You know, I'm just trying to be imaginative here, but yeah, all right. So I think that's probably a pretty cool place to be, with the exception of that C minor. You know, since we're in this open position, you saw me grab that 4th fret on the B string, and that's a really cool thing to do if you're really starting to become interested in any bluegrass or fiddle tune music. Any fiddle tune repertoire is definitely going to showcase some of that 4th fret on the high E string. You know, that flatted 3. We're trying to blur the line again between that flatted 3 or minor flatted 3rd and then the major 3rd. So sad or major 3rd or happy 3rd, right? So we've got that C major pentatonic scale. We already did the C major scale. So we have C major pentatonic. You know this, I mean, you've heard this C major pentatonic scale, I don't know how many times on the radio. So it's a little fast, the tempo, to play it, but at 60, but it's, I got sunshine. That's the C major pentatonic sound. the name of the scale. So instead of playing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, we're using only 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Okay? Cool. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add that, we're going to add that flatted 3 in there so we can jam that up, ram that right up against the major third, half step away, and create these beautiful bluegrass runs. I mean, so if you haven't been bitten by the bluegrass bug yet, there's a chance you could be. And man, it is like, once you get into playing some of those fiddle tunes, it's like, I don't know if you're into espresso like I am, it's kind of like you have 9 cups of caffeine. It's like, wow, it's a little blurry. It gets a little blurry, but it's pretty fun. So we have another really cool basic bluegrass riff or lick. So there's that 1, and then we're using that E flat or E flat there, that E flat there, right? So since we did this down here an octave lower, we can do that up here too. But we're kind of out of our element here in open position, so we have this. We would probably change position, to get that nailed. So there's some fun to be had there too. It's all based on C major chord. And I'm so glad you came by today. I'm so glad you're hanging out, and I hope the C chord is helpful. It's really important to keep that thumb down, to keep the body posture good. And once the thumb's down, you can really enjoy good quality spread on the left hand fingers. You can enjoy really good quality space away from the guitar neck. That helps to get the fingers to roll over, to get the strings cleanly executed or cleanly fretted. And other than that, I think the rest of the time I'm going to leave up to you, and you can just fill it with whether you want to start with, the C chord or the C5, and just practice strum patterns. And that's a great week in itself, just to sit here with a 60 notes per minute metronome running in the background and spend a half hour just banging out chords, bass note and strum. And you can't substitute that time. You cannot do it. I mean, we can pretend, but we know that we're not playing it, right? So if we're I'm just going to encourage you to go ahead and sit down with a guitar and play the guitar and enjoy it, and spread that good cheer and good news with other friends who might want to play the guitar and might want to deepen their experience with a C major chord. So I appreciate you coming by today. I really hope you have a wonderful time. And until next time, happy picking.